in the end there's a UV system, which actually I should just show the actual picture. I don't know why I'm showing a diagram like it's class or something. But anyway, UV light to sterilize the water. So then there's like bacteria can get through the particle filters because they're really small, like smaller than 1 nanometer or 1 micron, let's say, which is, oh shit, I'll tell you later. And then, I forgot. So then, anyway, bacteria can get through.
Don't worry.
All right, no problem. So here's kind of like a life-size looking version of the system. And there's like the UV lamp, and there's also a heater to reheat the water. So there's kind of two ideas behind shower loop. One is that it lets you reuse your shower water while you're in it. So instead of using like 100 liters of water for a 10-minute shower, which is kind of an average-ish time, then you could just use 1 bucket of water, 10 liters of water, and be in the shower for 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 30 minutes, but it would still only be that 10 liters of water. And then the filters would clean it and make sure that you are clean. And I have a lot of, the only thing I kind of haven't solved is with how to deal with soap, because I don't really know yet what the right filter is to remove soap, because we use so many different kinds of soaps, and soaps end up in the ocean and stuff. It's kind of like, it's not a good thing, and so I'd want to find, I think I have many ideas actually how to do it, but basically use steam or something kind of like a Nebbia type thing so that we wouldn't even use it maybe, and then at least in some cases, and then in that sense you could recycle the water for longer and keep the filters clean for longer. And actually there was that whole piping diagram thing. It's like a complicated way of getting the water to either backwash through the system to like wash the filter, or then not go into the filter at all and kind of like conserve the water in other ways. And then of course the idea later would be that you could use the water from the shower into another system, like maybe washing your dishes or something, or like pre-washing your dishes, because you know they're got dirt and stuff on it, so you could like wash those with that, and then kind of in the end flush the toilet with it. So then instead of using the average 120 liters of water a day that we use here in Helsinki, we could use, you know, maybe 20 liters a day per person, and still do your washing and still do everything else, and we wouldn't even notice it. And then the best part is that when you do it like that, in a like cyclically, then you can conserve all the heat energy that's in the water. Oh, question?
Or sort of like yeah, I was just supposed to say the think about using the water for, like, for example, washing dishes or something. Like, you know, in the countryside, like, you know, for agriculture, they have, like, I think they have some kind of system where they actually do reuse the rainwater, I think it's called,
right,
for agricultural purposes.
Right.
So that's something that that is like an existing concept, which, you know, I'm not sure.
No, I mean, there are like, for instance, collecting rainwater is like the oldest trick in the book kind of thing, and totally practical. Like why, like if it's coming from the sky, like we should use that. And I mean, okay, kind of the reason I'm doing it is because I like long showers. I also see that there's issues in the world with water, and which is also why I try to open source the work as much as I can. I'm a bit lazy, so I'm not so great at it, but I am kind of an advocate for open source, and like I have an Instructable which has one of the versions of the shower loop that I made a few years ago, and like almost 80,000 people have liked it or something, but I don't know what that means because no one else has built the system and reported back to me and said like, hey, this is great and this works, or I use this kind of pump, you should try it out or something. And because that would be the idea of open source development, that like with code you can, you know, share your batches of code, but with hardware you could find localized solutions or solve problems that you have, like depending on if you want it to run on solar power or something else. For instance, I knew from the beginning that the whole system should be like 12 volt because it's like safer, like electrically, like if you're touching 12 volt DC stuff. And then like if you were to get like electrocuted, then it wouldn't be as bad, I guess, if it's 12 volt, or so I understand. And then also, because it's 12 volt, it means it's like off-grid ready. Like you could hook up a standard solar panel, like almost all of them, or any like voltage transformer thing that you hook up the solar panel to will give you 12 volts. Like that's like the most common thing, and like car batteries and stuff like that. So the idea is that it could be like sustainable and, you know, run on its own for a long time and not needing like the external grid, the external system. And that way also you would kind of have like you know, water security in your life. Like if all hell breaks loose and it's the zombie apocalypse outside, you know, remember in like every movie they start running out of water, and then they're like on the rooftops, and then it starts raining, and they're like, we're saved. And it's like the first hopeful moment in the zombie apocalypse, because they're like, yeah, we're not gonna, you know, like it happened in 28 Days Later or something. That was anyway. So kind of also like I feel like our grid or our whole network is pretty vulnerable. Like in the water towers, all the water towers in all of Helsinki, and there's like 18 or 19, or I don't know, they're demolishing some and building new ones. And then it's like a day and a half of water or something, if we're lucky. And then, and especially if there is kind of like a zombie apocalypse or some cataclysmic event, you know, an environmental thing, it hasn't rained and there's no groundwater or something, the pipes were all broken, then like it would take a while until people would even realize that they need to like change their behavior or put some water into a bucket and like store it. And so that's kind of also one of the angles with kind of why the idea of the shower. And because I don't code, like I know that ultimately it should be like a smart shower system where you just go in and it kind of has some sensors and flow sensors and temperature sensors to kind of regulate everything and give you some feedback, like how just like how much water you save, kind of make you feel good about being, you know, sustainable and stuff, so that you do more of that kind of stuff in your life. But then all the guys that I work with that are coders and stuff, they kind of disappear from the project, and then it kind of stops, and we've developed like prototype versions. But then I figured I should do something on my own as well, so then I've made it like an electromechanical thing, so everything's like switches and like kind of old school, because I really like that steampunk stuff. And then the idea would be that you can repair it yourself, because it's not like a SMD stuff. You can just use a screwdriver and get some new wire and like plug it in. And I shipped my first ones this summer. I had 2 interns, Abiola and Sarah, and this is her van that she lived in, and it was like a house van, and she drove from Norway to Vanta to come and like work with me and build it. And it was really good that we got a bunch of shower loops built for like our first customers, first users. And I don't know if they're even using it now, even though I sent them a while ago. Like everything's kind of always taking its sweet time with this project, because I've been doing it a few years now. There you can see how depressed I get sometimes. But I think it's more like I'm just wondering, like, what do I do next? Because this was a version for the design museum. But that's a lot of talk about. Oh, right. Yeah, a lot of talk about the shower loop. But that's kind of like what drives me, and what brought me into this realm of like maker spaces. And it was really the Fab Lab. I tried to get into Design Factory in Aalto University, like as an outsider. Like I was basically unemployed after university and working on the project in a garage, and then trying to get a project there, and it was never happening. And then I went to Aalto Fab. Actually, there was, okay, long story. Those open source circular economy days event in between, which is like very much also what I'm interested in, circular economy and maker spaces. And that's kind of what I don't know how long I got anymore, but the real crux of what I think is a good way into the future. But anyway, a bit about maker spaces, and I was brought into them because yeah, they have the tools that I don't have, and I need the tools so I can make the thing that I am envisioning. And I don't have money, so I can't just outsource it and pay some company to make a thing and then get it back and then it doesn't work because I'm not that smart and I didn't design it right the first time. Or you have to learn. So then you need a place where you can iteratively do more, like quickly make the next one. And it's super easy with code. Like, you guys are lucky. It's like, it didn't work. Okay, add a comma. Okay, run it again. Compile, make, and then but yeah, that's super frustrating for its own rights, which is why I can't do it. I need to be able to Anyway, so I was really fascinated by the possibility that, it's the future, right? Automation is the way to go. And that way a small company can have a lot of output. And the way I kind of figured it is, I want to tool up and get tools so I can make things, but I want to have the tools so I can make like lots of things, like not one specific thing. I mean, that's what tools are for. They're kind of multifunctional. So I basically wanted a space like the Fab Lab before I knew what it was. And so this is a CNC machine making a filter lid compression disc for me, I'm making it. I'm running the machine, but I'm actually just standing there right now watching it do its thing. Out the Fab Lab, it's like so they just let me in and let me do work there and stuff for free and like do my project stuff there. And I would help other students to like use the machines like laser cutters and 3D printers and the CNC machine and make stickers and stuff. And I didn't really know any of that stuff in the beginning either, but they let me kind of like learn, or I was curious enough to learn, and then I was so excited that I would always show other people how to do it, and that way the overstaffed Fab Lab had more time to help other people, and then I'd get to play with the machines all the time and like learn how to use them. Okay, I don't know. This is kind of where it kind of breaks apart a little bit, because this was another project that I was doing, like augmented reality sandbox. And so this is at the Design Museum now, like a much bigger, nicer version of it. And so that was a project started by UC Davis to teach like geography and like you make a landmass, and then the height mapping from a Kinect controller like sees what the heights are, and then it projects different colors depending on the height. So then you can see kind of, here's a peak and it's like red, and it's lower down, it's yellow, and then there's the sea level and water floating around. And so then I couldn't have done this alone. Actually, I didn't really do so much of the coding stuff, but I don't know if I have a picture even to show it, but we made this huge, oh wait, I do. I have some videos somewhere, but I don't know if I can find it now in front of everybody. Anyway, so the thing about makerspaces is that they give access to people to make things, and I think we're facing a lot of things in the future, a lot of problems, a lot of ways that I think we need to restructure society so that we can live more sustainably and like equally and more balanced and safer and better. And also, I think like we're striving for the stars and go out into space. And when you build a space colony or like any colony even on Earth, like it's a lot of work to bring all the materials that you need to make stuff. So we can't bring every factory that we have here. We need to have like a more diverse system. And the way I see it is, if we can kind of like have maker spaces, because now in the Fab Lab there's maybe 20 people a day that come in and make something, like a small prototype of something, and then they go away and like maybe come back and make some small things again. But if it was like 100 times bigger, or like the size of a mall, for instance, instead of going to a shop and buying a thing, you can go to a shop and there's the machine that makes the thing, like, oh, it's a sock knitting machine, and then, but I want it to have like this picture or, something on it, then a person there could like show you how to use it, like, hey, just draw the picture here and then press print, and then it'll do it. then that way we could kind of participate more in like how things are produced and what materials they're produced with. And yeah, I don't know if that kind of, my vision is kind of coming across. I always have a hard time trying to define, like, it's like this kind of, you know, because if we make things ourselves, we appreciate them more, and we can kind of customize them more to our needs. And if the machines are sophisticated and quality enough, like we can get this kind of factory quality, and then using like the right kind of software and programming, like parametric design modeling, for instance, where you can set like, I'm making a chair and this, it's for a person that's of these specifications, and then it would like generate the chair automatically, or generate the shoes, or whatever. You can do 3D scanning. And anyway, so it's kind of like there's this is happening anyway. Large corporations are all the time testing the boundaries and experimenting with those kinds of things. But I'd rather if like kind of collectively people would do that together, instead of just having big corporations that here's the new fancy trendy thing and do this. But if we kind of took charge of making things, then we would be responsible for them. Like, you know, you don't want to use bad materials, or, you know, you try to be like, you know, Luomo and local, and, you know, like less transport. And what do you do with the thing afterwards? You could actually have like really effective recycling programs, because anything that you make in this like maker mall, then you could just bring it back, like it broke, and they're like, no problem, let's make another one, or let's glue it together. We have all the supplies that we need to work with exactly that thing. And then that way you can basically make recycling systems that are like close to 100% efficient, or you could even think of it as what, like you could get to over that, because you'd be actually upcycling products in the future. And then, yeah, we shouldn't have garbage. I think we should just stop making all the waste and change our processes so that they don't have it. Like, you know, we used to have the milk bottle thing, and they would clean the milk bottle and they'd bring it back. And I know that, like, kind of logistically now, I think it's more expensive to transport all that mass back and forth. But you know, we have packaging kind of going in this like one direction thing all the time, going into the trash. And that packaging isn't even the worst thing, because like it's kind of good. I hear that if you package food, it preserves for longer, so you have less food waste, and the packaging's like 2% of the accumulated waste. But like losing that food is then like, you know, 50% of the energy lost, or 100% of the energy lost. Like, you know, if you grow a banana in Africa and ship it all the way here, and okay, wait, you don't wrap bananas, so that story doesn't work. But yeah, okay. So I guess the last thing. So I work at the Fab Lab, and I work on Shower Loop, and then now with Niklas to make the sandbox, we also decided to build our own makerspace. And kind of we weren't getting so much work at the Fab Lab, so we're like, screw it, let's make our own Fab Lab. But now we're kind of working more at the Fab Lab, and like, okay, let's make the Fab Lab better. But ideally, we just want more maker spaces, and we tried. What I think would be the goal is, I know this is not like the prettiest thing, but it was like, you know, in a rush. Like, the idea would be that we would, like, if there were more of these maker spaces available, then it would be a way for like, okay, let's say what's going to happen in 20 years when robots are displacing more people, like unemployment's rising, and maybe we have like UBI or something. There needs to be a good and like smart and functional way to get people that don't have a job to like make a job. For instance, if no one wants to give them a job, then give them the tools to make a job, or be productive, or like fix things, whatever. And because I think that's like a really fulfilling thing. Like, it's connected to everything that we are. This room is full of stuff that people have made. The more like connected you can be to that, like the nicer it is as well. And anyway, the idea would be that we need to find a way to get these maker spaces to generate revenue, generate money, so that they can grow and get bigger. And in America, and actually all over the world, there are maker spaces. There are thousands of them. There's over 1,000 Fab Labs around the world. I probably should have mentioned that. and then like 3, kind of 4 in Finland, and Oulu and Tampere, they're doing really well. They get like €1 million funding a year, but that's kind of also a problem that it's so, they cost a lot, and like, okay, Alta Fab Lab, it's like a non-profit because it's paid for by the university, so it's just there to help students make their things, but like, we'd really need those things to become products so that they are designers and stuff, so that they can keep making all the cool stuff they make. Like, there's this one guy who's like a coder, I think he works at F-Secure, and he made this software that lets you like make a low poly 3D model, and then it'll actually, it doesn't even need to be 3-sided. I think it'll just break it down and then generate these cuts with holes in it and these little clippy things, and they're all different angles depending on like the angle here or the angle here, and so it's like, you wouldn't want to do that in your head, obviously, but it's nice. So you just put it in the software, and it's on GitHub. It's called Explosion, and then it makes this cool model. And I met him at the Fab Lab, and then I was like, hey, can we make a shower stall that's like a really big version of that? And so then, yeah, I made this kind of like cocoon thing because it was going to the design museum, and I was like, oh shit. I can't just make like a plywood box and have it look lame. It's got to be kind of cool. And yeah, I was kind of lucky that the floor and the walls were kind of like this spaceship theme. Yeah, and then maybe I should still mention one thing about, oh, I won a prize. This year in May. I was in Berlin for just Galileo Wissenspreis. It was like part of this Green Tech Awards. That was pretty cool. So that, it's like, I don't really make money on the project, but I get to go to all kinds of cool places. I went to, like, I brought my shirt, like here, it's like a heart, POC 21. It was in France in like 2015, and it was like a really big open source like maker camp. It was a camp. It was like 5 weeks in like this old castle, Chateau de Millemont, like an hour and a half from Paris. And but we were like camping outside. I thought like, yeah, we get to live in a castle. And I was like, no, it was kind of moldy and gross in there. But it was really cool. We set up a maker space in like a stable that was 250 years old. And oh yeah, this was because we were trying to get like some funding. Oh yeah, right. So it's in Idle Island. If you know the Technica Museum. I don't know why. Like this year, my life is just museums, and I'm an environmental engineer, maybe like a designer, but not the world's best one yet. And then, but yeah, it's really nice to have that kind of connection because I am trying to get inspiration from like the old stuff and things around me, but like who isn't doing that? I just want to show a picture of the sandbox, but yeah, okay, one last thing. So open source. I think if you have this kind of this more localized idea of maker spaces in smaller communities and trying to kind of keep all the resources on the inside. And I don't mean like not have trade and be like, I don't know, build walls or something, but more like that we maybe like specialize in certain areas, kind of like kibbutzes or something did in Israel. There would be like one kind of collective that would make fire trucks and another one that would make soap, and that like ideal is kind of cool unless you grow up in that place and all anyone does is make soap. It would be pretty boring, I guess. But like I think if we could share that information with each other, like across the world, kind of like, well, I mean that happens as well. But yeah, actually, people are trying to connect to me from South Africa and Germany and France and Australia and Belgium and stuff. And if there was an easy way to kind of connect to other places that could build on not just my tech, but like things that could really help solve like really big issues. Yeah, I'm still a little lost because I don't know how to get from here to there, because I think like for me that's like a nice vision, but yeah, it's I guess about trying to convince people to all work together and be happy and nice to each other, or like to have a common goal. And I think actually that's one thing that's always missing. Like what are we like striving for together, and what are our metrics to say that, hey, this year was better than last year, that we're making the world better now than, you know, last year or last decade or something. I mean, things are always getting better, and statistically at least. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I just come and try and talk about this kind of stuff in the hopes that there'll be more opportunities for yeah, like other people to do what I'm doing. Like just let them know, like, hey, there's like places and spaces, and hopefully we can make more of them. Yeah, I think that's about it. I don't know. You guys got some questions? Sorry for rambling. Here was, yeah.
The example of bananas, like it was pretty good because they do use like they wrap the stem of bananas with a little bit of plastic, which like then they don't rot as fast.
Right.
And
Okay.
Also like I think they like, which is kind of like not packaging per se, but they spray them with some kind of solution as well. So I guess they don't give off as much of the ethylene gas, but they have.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, all of the, like, that stuff is like crazy science. Like on the ship, on the way, like, yeah, they spray it with this stuff so that it starts ripening like on the boat, and then when it arrives it's ready, because no one wants to like stockpile the stuff. But that's kind of the thing, that the pace of everything is so incredibly rapid and fast. And I mean, we're not going to go back. I've accepted that. That's why I'm trying to build solutions and then just share them, because I don't think I have like the business acumen to do it the way that you're supposed to do it. And yeah. See, oh, I was in a tiny house. I got to stay in a tiny house in Berlin. Oh shit, I can't remember her name. She was the best host. I'm really bad with names. But it's so spacious. It was so spacious, this little house that was like 17 square meters. And like that's actually, that kind of ties in, I think, to all of that stuff as well. Like the only way I see that I get to own a house is either like living way out in the country, or then building this like tiny little house and like kind of hacking the system that like they're on wheels usually, so they're not registered as houses, so you don't have to do all the permitting stuff like that. And then that way you can build it yourself. And like I would want to build it so that it's all like self-sufficient, and you know, there's composting. Yeah, I was like shitting in a bucket for a week. They were doing this like not even compost, I forget the name of it. It's like this Japanese like fermentation thing that's like 3 times faster than composting. That was weird. I didn't have to do that, but I just like pooped in there, and like, you know, like we're all used to it from the cottage. And yeah, like this was a while ago now. This is the Labers workspace, because it's like in this big hall and it's just full of potential, which is why I kind of think I have some bigger dreams now. It's really messy there because we brought a bunch of stuff. And a while ago we bought from Alto Media Factory. They were selling like their old movie theater stuff, so we bought like some speakers that are like this big, and they're really heavy. That's Nicholas who yeah, he was like coding the sandbox, and that was like the first versions. And I don't know, I was just like trying to come up with a slideshow. Hey, yeah, does anyone know this? Futuro House, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was like, it's so cool, like in the 60s and 70s. I think they built the future that I wanted to live in. And but yeah, it smelled kind of weird because it's all made out of plastic. So this was before the 70s, when the oil and energy crisis. So then the price of plastic went up, and then this thing was never like mass produced, which is like too bad, because people really like it, and it's like a happy alien greeting you. yeah, then there was just some junk I made. I don't know if it's worth the story, but I was at this One-a-thon 48, and that was like the best movie night I ever had. It's just a bunch of people that made movies in 2 days, so not sleeping. I'm sure you guys have heard of it and seen it. But they had like the film, the directors and people like come there on stage and they could ask questions, and it was just the best cinema experience I ever had, and that was